Hello, everybody. Woo! What brings you all to a windowless room in Seattle? This is a packed crowd. It's good to see you all. My name is Ryan. I lead our low-code application platform products that you historically might know as Power Apps. But what you're about to see today is going to bear very little resemblance to low-code of the past. Right? What we're going to really talk about, but more importantly, show you, is a totally different way to think about business process, think about automation, think about applications, what it looks like to run, and what it looks like to build. I'm really just an MC today. The real love is going to be in just a lot of hands-on live demo of actual code running that you can use as well. So everybody, pour one out for the demo gods, and we're going to hope that this all works. But the important piece of this story is it's all real. This is not just future vision. But I do want to take a couple minutes to warm us up here and just kind of put it in a frame of why are we doing all of this, right? And it's not really about any one product. It's not really about any one piece of tech. It's about scale and velocity. Right? If we think about what an AI-first organization needs to be and become, it's really about pushing the way we think about core fundamental problems and how to approach them, and move from incremental thinking, how do I do 10% better next year? How do I do 10% more revenue per employee, 10% less cost, right? And actually move that decimal point substantially and ask a question, how do we do 10 times better? How do we do 10 times better with AI? And that's a huge shift, right? I can do 10% better more or less in my current form and shape without changing a lot. I can push my team a little harder. I can make some tough trade-offs in my vendor budget. I can get to 10%. But I cannot get to 10x in my current form and shape, right? And for that, I have to fundamentally rethink how I operate. And that's really the role and the world of agents and digital coworkers, right? And that's not even just a nice personal assistant for every human. That's really how do I have AI start doing tasks autonomously, and not just individual tasks on demand at level 2, but really increasingly teams of digital coworkers who work together with humans. And that's the only way we're going to get to 10x thinking. And it sounds a little sci-fi, but I guarantee you, there is a company in every industry that we represent that got born within the last 6 or 12 months, or will be born in the next 6 to 12 months, that is thinking this way. And they're coming for all of us, right? And so if we don't start thinking about how do we get to 10x, then we're all in for a world of hurt. And so that means we have to shift our question about agents. It's not just how do I build my first agent or my first 5 agents. Again, I can do that kind of in my current form and shape. I can go file a new project and open some of the great developer tools and use AI Foundry, but move that decimal point. How am I going to put 500 digital coworkers to work, 5,000 of them in the next year? Right? I cannot file a new project my way to that kind of scale, not at the speed that we need. Right? We have to use platforms. And that's increasingly what we are thinking about and building around in Power Platform and Copilot Studio, is really how do we build the agent platform for high-scale, high-productivity digital coworkers, right? An agent platform is a lot more than just one agent at a time. It's a lot more than just a tool to automate one thing. It's how do I have a whole end-to-end life cycle of how I build those agents, how I interact with them as humans, how they interact with my systems and workflows, how I govern them and oversee them and operate them and deploy them from dev to test to prod. We need a whole robust platform. And that's where we have a huge advantage at not starting from scratch. Right? Being able to build on top of all the greatness that's currently in the Power Platform and currently in Copilot Studio allows us to get that speed and agility and repeatability. Right? And then we can plug that in, like it already is, to the experiences that hundreds of millions of people are already using in Microsoft 365. And we can take all of the amazing tools that are being developed at that lower level in Azure AI Foundry and GitHub Copilot with Agent Mode and all of the awesome dev tools that you heard about this morning and lift that up into the Power Platform layer and go much faster with it. And that means I can have my data scientists and AI developers fine-tuning models, making capabilities available, registering MCP servers, and then I can build hundreds or thousands of agents that leverage those tools on top. And that's what we're going to show you today. And why Copilot Studio and Power Apps specifically? It's because we really think that is the future of a lot of work inside of our companies. A lot of the tasks, the low-level tasks, the data entry tasks, the report generation tasks that are done today by humans will increasingly be done by agents. Right? And that shifts the role of the humans to managing that work and overseeing it and being a thought partner to it and training and improving it. And that will take custom interfaces that do not exist today. In fact, I would argue pretty much all of the software we use inside of our companies is basically obsolete because it is not built for a world in which humans and agents collaborate. Right? And so we have to not only build a lot of agents, we have to rethink a lot of software at the same time. And that's what we're talking about today, is how do we go reimagine a whole bunch of new experiences and processes around this new paradigm of humans and agents working together. And how do we build it is on a platform. And it starts with what we call a plan for the work. What part is the agent going to do? What part is the human going to do? And what assets do I need to create to make all that happen? Right? And then, of course, we need to go build and refine those things, build the agents, build the applications, make them do exactly what we need. But software is never done, especially not in an AI era. In fact, the day we ship it, it's the worst it will ever be. Right? So how do we get into a continuous improvement loop, and particularly continuously improve the AI around it? And then how do we run all of that on a fully managed platform with great governance, great security, high availability, disaster recovery, right? All of the things we expect from running mission-critical software in our companies. And this is what we're going to show you today, all of it live. We're going to start at the top. What does that new pattern of work look like for an end user partnering with a team of agents? And then we're going to go step through each of these steps. What does it mean to build that plan? What does it mean to create and refine those agents in Power Platform? What does it mean to further improve them and continuously improve the AI? What does it mean to deploy at massive scale on a managed platform? And we're going to do it all with a beer in our hands. Heineken is an amazing Power Platform customer. Every employee at Heineken has full capabilities of Power Apps, and just about all of them use it every month. But they have also been a really close partner with us as we've built out this next future. And so we're going to show you all of these demos through some real-world scenarios from our customer Heineken. And at the end, you'll get to hear in their own words how they feel about all of this as well. But to start us off and bring us up, give a round of applause for Anthony, who's going to go show us the future of work.
Hello, excited to be here. And I'm also super excited to show you guys the new experience for employees, where they can supervise their team of AI agents directly in applications, the reimagined hub for human-agent collaboration. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So what you see here, where I start my day, is our new agent feed. And I can see the team of AI agents that I'm accountable for, the sales order manager, the supply planner, and so on. Each one of these agents is doing a critical business process for me. For example, our sales order managing is autonomously handling the creation and validation of sales orders. This is a whole new pattern for app users and business applications, where you have an almost social media-like feed where you can see all the activities of your AI agents. But of course, even in this new world, there's work for humans too. I can see where my AI agents need my assistance. Maybe they got blocked or hit an exception. And I can see exceptions and suggestions from my AI agents for high-value tasks that I need to go do. Let's go ahead and jump into one of these now. We can see that my agents need a bit of assistance creating a sales order as they're lacking some information. When I click this task, the app takes me to the best possible spot to help assist. And my agent feed comes along for the ride, so I can see the context, what my agent was trying to do, create a sales order, what activated it, an email, the knowledge it did, the steps it took, and it looks like it needs a little bit of help here creating that last sales order. On the right-hand side, we have the form from the app with the sales order information that the agent tried to create, the number and so on. But as you can see, there's a lot of fields missing here that needs a bit of assistance. I have an email from the client to help me out, but it's a pretty dense email, lots of information about the sales order and what it needs to go do. Traditionally, this is where I'd spend a lot of time and manual effort to go figure out what fields to pull out, what information to pull out from that email, and manually add it to the right spot in the form. And this is a very, very long form. But thankfully, here at Microsoft, we love AI agents so much, we've also built them into the app experience. In this case, I have the data entry agent. I'm going to go ahead and use our M365 picker to pick this email, and it'll then start processing that. The data entry agent understands my form and every field on it. Then it goes through that email and extracts out all the relevant information for me and then suggests the right field values for me to go review. So for example, we can see here that in the email, it said the site was Woodgrove Groceries, and the agent got that right. The site is Woodgrove Groceries. Also things like the order quantity. You can see here it had lots of different numbers to pull, and it pulled those all directly from the email, and looks like it got them all right. A solid 10 out of 10 job, if I do say so myself. But you can see there's also things where it took a bit of reasoning to help add it into the field. It's not just copy pasting values. The order reason in the email is quite lengthy, but in the form itself, it gave me a bridged version of that. It summarized it for me so the field was less cumbersome. And so it's not just moving data, it's thinking about it, synthesizing, and then putting that in the form in the best possible format. But there's still quite a few fields missing here. So let's go ahead and pass it this sales order confirmation I have on hand as well. I'm going to go ahead and just drag and drop that in, and it'll pass it directly to the data entry agent to handle for me. And so once again, this agent is going to go ahead and extract that information. One of the nice pieces we've built in here is that when I want to review those suggestions, I have citations in line. I can see exactly what data source it used and where I got that information, and I can accept and reject that easily if I like it or if I don't need to go edit it. Looks like our agent's done filling out the rest of the fields as well. So for example, we can see got the total order weight correctly, as well as the validation checks in as well. That was much, much faster than having me manually do all that work, right? In fact, even in user studies, we found that people fill out forms 30% faster using our agent-powered experience, and 95% prefer it over traditional data entry methods. Okay, so that's one task done. But the cool thing about agents is they not only do these kind of needs of assistance requests, but they also do some preparation for me as well. For example, my agent needs a bit of help reviewing the increased order volume. It wants me to go take a look and figure out if there's opportunity for transportation efficiencies, and it wants me to do that data analysis. So we're going to go jump over to the grid to go do that. I'm going to expand out the window and collapse our agent feed so we have a bit more space for the data table. Same as with the form, we've built in an AI agent into this data table called the data exploration agent. I'm going to go ahead and ask it, can you show me orders shipped to Blue Yonder Airlines by total pallets confirmed over time? And same as before, the agent will take that natural language query and reason over it and figure out, how do I best answer this question? How do I best show this data to the user? So it's going to do things like filter the data and so on. So for example, here you can see that it figured out that I want to see the customer names begins with Blue Yonder Airlines, which is exactly what I asked for. One of the other cool pieces that I said over time, and the AI agent figured out, hey, you probably want to see a graph of that data over time to best understand it. And you can see in that graph we have a nice upward trends of order volume as the agent flagged from before. No developer had to create this graph. The agent generated it for me on the fly based off of my query. Super cool. Let's go a bit deeper. I want to see maybe if there's opportunities to optimize how we ship these to major cities. And just like before, when I say major cities, there's no definition of that in my database. The data exploration agent is using its intelligent reasoning to figure out what is a major city, what does the person want to see here. In this case, it's figured out cities like New York or Houston or Los Angeles or San Francisco were all major cities to go filter towards. And it also generates that graph for me again and filters that. It's a little bit weird here. I don't quite like this one, but thankfully I'm always in control. I can go ahead and change the graph type or change what data it uses and so on. So this graph, while generated for me, is something that I can modify on the fly. It also interacts with my data. So if I filter it, it does that as well. And the data exploration agent gives me summaries in line. So I don't have to go click through that whole form every time. When I click our inline row summary, I get an error. Let me go try that again with a different one. We can see a nice summary this time. It had a little problem with the previous one. And I can see things like the credit status and that it hit the validation all in line. And so that's super useful. Hopefully this helps also illustrate the point that Ryan made earlier of why we use business applications for oversight and supervision of AI agents. I need to be a business user who deeply understands this process. For example, understanding sales orders and how to validate them to assist my AI agents with doing that. And when I assist them, I want task-specific UX purpose-built for things like my sales orders, like this grid you saw a second ago in the form from earlier, to help assist and supervise that agent with that. And so apps become the best place for this human-agent collaboration. So this report is super awesome. So awesome, in fact, I bet my manager will want to report on it on a regular basis. And it can't just be one of those simple reports where I copy the data and email it over that we could traditionally automate super easily. I want it to be a little bit intelligent. I want it to synthesize that data and flag certain records or show a summary for my manager. We've made that easier too. So now we have this new ability to easily create an agent flow from fill in the blanks. The tab disappears. I'm going to refresh for a second. But if we go up into the command bar, we have this create agent flow button where I can pick from a set of templates my maker created. And I have this nice fill-in-the-blank system. So rather than having to think through things like all the data and writing all the code, as an app user, I can create a configurable agent flow on the fly. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to send this to my manager, Evan Liu. And I want to send it on a weekly basis. And then, if we go back to my email for a second, we can see the email that this agent will create. So if we go back and go into my folders, you can see we'll have this nice report sent to my manager based off of this view with the flagged records and the synthesis that was handled by the AI agent. Even better, this agent flow is just another thing I'm supervising. It shows up in my agent feed. I can see here in this Manage tab all the different agent flows I have running on my behalf alongside the rest of my AI agents. So it's all one cohesive place for supervising your team of digital coworkers. And so I hope that's super cool to see. And we finished 3 of my 5 tasks for the day. And there's a lot of magic in that sentence, 5 tasks for the day. Traditionally, I would have had to go through and handle these hundreds of sales orders myself. But now with my team of AI agents, my job becomes managing these 5 requests for assistance from my agent. The way this experience works is now completely different because the amount of manual effort that I have to do has dramatically decreased as I have a team of AI agents handling those tasks for me in the background. And even when I have to do manual effort, I have built-in agents to help me every step of the way to do that work faster and do that work better. And so we're really excited to see how you all leverage applications to be this human agent collaboration hub and figure out how you deploy these at scale with your teams. Thank you so much. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. Woo! That is not your uncle's Power App. It's a much more powerful app than anything we've seen on the platform before. And that mode of interaction is really key, right? I mean, what's the difference between an agent and a chatbot? An agent doesn't sit in a corner and wait for somebody to ask it a question, right? It's able to do work as a member of the team. And what you just saw is how the rest of the team experiences that. Now, I think the really interesting question for those of us at Microsoft Build is, okay, what does become our role as developers in that world? In a world where AI, even on the fly for an end user, can generate great charts without any developer writing front-end code or any business analyst building a cube, what is our role to go build for those scenarios? And that is where we have just a lot of cool innovation where we'll spend most of the time today. And it's going to start with a plan. We introduced this concept of the plan in Power Apps a few months ago. And people have been hammering on it in an early preview, and we've added a bunch of innovation to it. And we think that becomes really the hub of how all of these new scenarios start, right? How do I take a business challenge, a thing people do today, and turn it into a plan for human-agent collaboration? And to show us that, Evan is going to take us away.
All right, so let's take a look at how you can build that agent app that Anthony just showed you. But before we dive into the app, we want to back up and actually start with the business problem, right? So getting a Heineken from the brewery to the bar involves an incredibly complex set of logistics. And so to streamline those operations, we're going to ask the plan designer here for a solution to manage customer orders. And so I'm just describing this in natural language, just like I would to a coworker. So I'm going to ask it for a solution to manage customer sales orders. We have trade agreements for each customer. We want to validate each incoming sales order according to the attached flowchart. So let's go ahead and add that flowchart here. And so I've got a little hand-drawn flowchart with a couple steps and some branching logic. Let's add that. We also want the solution to evaluate the header and line level attributes using the attached trade agreement as an example. So we'll attach this as well. So here's an example of that trade agreement, their minimum order requirements, a delivery schedule. and we're going to just hit send here. And so I'm handing this business problem off to a team of agents. And you can see right here, the requirements agent is working and thinking through that business problem. I have a team of other agents here as well. In addition to the requirements agent, I've got a process agent that's thinking through the business processes. I've got a data agent that's thinking through the data model. I've got a solution agent that's thinking through the artifacts that I need to solve this problem. So you can see here the requirements agent has determined that I probably need a few personas to solve this problem. So there's a customer here, the person that's placing the order with Heineken. There's a sales manager who is responsible for managing the customer orders, and an AI agent for validating those orders and answering the inquiries. And you can see not only do I have the personas, but I have the user stories for each of those personas. Now, at the same time, the process agent has also gone on to map those requirements to different steps of the business workflow. So it's determined that I need a order placement and inquiry process, a trade agreement management process, a order validation and processing process. And so we can easily dig into one of these processes to take a look at what it's doing. So let's look at this one here. This is an order validation and processing process. And so as we dig into it, you can see here, and we'll get a little more space, you can see it starts first with the customer order that's received. It then hands it off to an AI agent. There's some branching logic here to see if it's compliant with trade agreements. Then it hands it back to a sales manager. So this is the plan for how humans and agents should work together for this business problem. And of course, all this is editable. I can change the branching logic. I can add additional steps to the process. If I go back to the plan, I can even add new personas. So as an example here, let's add a new persona. And we'll add a trade analyst. And the requirements agent here is then going to flesh out the user stories for that persona. And so that looks good to me. And we're going to then hand things off to the next agent on the team, the data agent. And so based on the business problem that I gave it, based on the user personas, it's now proposing a number of tables that I need to store data in. So it's saying, hey, you probably need a customer table, you probably need a trade agreement table, an inventory table. Now, the great thing here is I can actually add existing data to my plan, right? So imagine I already have an accounts table here, and I just want to add that to the plan. I simply hit Add Selected here. It's adding that table. I'm going to drag it over here so we've got a little bit more space. And now I can create a relationship between that table and the trade agreement table. So let's say it's a one-to-many relationship. We're going to call this the account column and hit done. And just like that, not only do I have a data model, but I've customized it to incorporate existing data that I have in my organization. So let's dig into one of these tables here. And you can see, based on the business problem that I gave it, it's proposing that I need a column for agreement name, one for minimum order size, another for delivery days. And this is really just a start. And because this is built on a robust low-code platform, it's easy for me to add rows. I can add columns. But in this case, I'm just going to ask Copilot to do some of this for me. And so you can see I've asked it to add 3 columns, a distribution channel column, a max order size column, and a status columns, and to add 10 more rows of sample data. So of course, I can do all of this manually, but I'm just handing it off to Copilot here to do it for me a little faster. So you can see the 10 rows of sample data that it added. It added the columns that I was looking for. There's a distribution channel column. There's a max order column. It even got the data type right, knowing that max order sizes are typically whole numbers. And so that was the data agent. We're going to go back to our plan and hand things off to the last agent on the team here in the Plan Designer. We're going to say this looks good. And this is the solution agent. And so the solution agent is going to look over the business problem I gave it, the business processes, the user personas, and it's going to propose the artifacts that I need to solve this problem. So it's going to say, hey, you probably need an app here for trade agreement management. You probably need an agent here for order validation. you probably need a flow for order rejection notification. So all of this looks great to me. And so just to recap, we started with the business problem, right? How do we help Heineken get things from the brewery to your bar in the most efficient manner? We gave the problem to the plan designer. The team of agents then helped me come up with the user requirements, the business processes, the data model, and is proposing here a bunch of technology artifacts to solve that problem. So I'm off to a great start. So I'll hand it back to Ryan as I save the tables here.
Thank you, Evan. That's pretty cool, right? In the space of time it would have taken us to write the first paragraph of an RFP, right? We built out an entire plan, right? We put to work multiple different agents. It's like surrounding every developer and every business process expert in your company with a high-functioning digital software team. And what's cool is that Plan Designer today is now generally available in Power Apps. You can clap for that. But the other thing that's cool about the plan is it's not just a plan, right? This is Power Platform. And so we're not only pointing out, hey, you should have an app, you should have an AI agent. We know how to generate them for you on the fly, right? And then continue to iterate and improve. And how to generate apps and agents that out of the box have all the great capabilities from the plan, but then become really easy to customize and edit and tune to be exactly what you need them to be in your digital workforce. So to take us forward into that next step, now that we've given Evan a chance to take a breath, let's go see what it looks like to actually generate and refine these assets.
Great, thanks, Ryan. So we have our plan, and it's still saving here, so we'll see if we can delay things a little bit. But we want to now create an agent from that plan. So thankfully, I actually have one that I created just earlier today. And so all I did was I handed this business problem to the plan designer. It then took the business processes, the user personas, the data models, and it handed it off to Copilot Studio, which is Microsoft's low-code tool for building agents. It then determined the knowledge and the instructions necessary for that agent. So you can see here from the instructions that I gave the plan designer, it is now proposing that for this agent, we need to provide accurate and timely information about the order status. We need to respond to customer inquiries. We want to use the fulfillment table. So all of this was derived from the business problem that I gave it. And you can see here the knowledge that that agent is pulling from. And you recognize some of these tables from the data model that we had defined earlier. It's pulling from the customer table, the sales order table, the fulfillment table. And there's a trigger here. So it knows when to invoke the agent. So when an email arrives, we want to run this agent. Now, I can add tools to this agent. And so here I can actually connect it to the Outlook connector, so it can reply back with an email depending on the circumstance. I can add different, I can connect it to the Dataverse connector here as well, so I can have it insert various rows depending on the logic. I can even extend this agent with Model Context Protocol. So for now, I'm just going to test it. We're going to do a very simple test here, just to make sure it works. And I'm going to ask it, what is the order, the status of order ORD 1002, and what is the tracking number? And so what the agent's doing here is it's looking through the knowledge that was defined for it. It's looking through the customer table, it's looking through the sales order table, it's looking through the fulfillment table, and here you can see the response is that the status is currently pending, and here's the tracking number. And so I basically went from the plan, generated an agent, and that agent is now querying the data that we had created from the plan. So we've got our agent. I did talk about how we're going to create that app that Anthony showed you. So let's go do that now. And so let's pick one of these apps. Let's pick this customer order management one. All right, so what we're doing is the plan designer is, again, taking all of that context that I gave it, the data model, the user stories, the processes, and it's determining now the pages that I need in my app to accomplish this task. So it probably needs a page for customer, probably needs a page for sales order, and it's generating all of this on the fly for me. There's no need for me to drag and drop or to build this in a custom way. So you can see here, these are the pages that it's determined that I need. So I probably need a customer table here, and it's mapping it back to those user stories, right? So where the user can create and manage trade agreements. There's a page for orders where I can validate these incoming orders. There's one for trade agreements here as well. And so all of these pre-built pages let me manage the different parts of the data model. So as it's coming up, we'll preview each of these pages. So I can click on, say, customers here, and we can look at the sample data that was created from the plan designer. So let's try. This is a live code demo, so you can tell it's live. All right, here we go. So if I click on orders here, you can see this is the sample data that was created earlier. If I click on trade agreements, I can see all of these trade agreements that were created. And now each of these pre-built pages are also intelligent. And so just like Anthony showed you earlier, I can actually use natural language to filter this down. So let's look for agreements with fewer than, let's say, 20 days. And so it's going to convert this natural language to the filter criteria on that table. You can see it filtered it down just like that. Now, sometimes you need more than just a form or a grid. Sometimes you want more control. You want customized experiences. And so for that, we're going to create a new page in our app. And I'm going to just zoom out a little bit so we have a little bit more space to work with.
This is the part of the show, by the way, that nobody outside of Microsoft has ever seen before. So y'all are getting a special treat.
All right, so I'm going to hit Add Page again. And so I'm really excited to introduce to you generative pages in Power Apps. Now you can use natural language to build custom experiences that are backed by React code. So all I do here is describe the page that I want. And so I'm going to ask it for a page to upload and visualize these different rules. So you can see here, I want to upload, visualize, and edit these rules. I want 3 steps in the process. I want some customer selection. I want to then upload a file. And then I want to visualize those rules. And so I actually have a little whiteboard picture. And so you can see it's not very pretty, but the idea is I want an array of cards. I want a little picker at the top for the different steps. And I'm going to reference the table that we added earlier. So remember, I added that account table, so I'm going to reference that here. And we're going to go ahead and hit Generate. And so right away, the agent is now streaming its thoughts. It's playing back to me the requirements that I gave it. It's explaining the major functions that it needs for this page. It's even giving me some follow-up questions for things that it needs clarification for. And then now it starts streaming the code. Now, this is not traditional low code. This is real React and TypeScript. It's well-structured, it's commented, there's state management, there's error handling, and it's connecting to those Dataverse tables that I referenced earlier. And so we'll give it a minute here to compile the code. And this is always the moment of truth. With LLMs, you're not quite sure what you're going to get. But we want an app that looks somewhat like the whiteboard chicken scratch that I put here earlier in our instructions. And so there we go. Here is our app.
Yeah.
The demo gods are cooperating with us today. All right, so you can see it looks kind of like my whiteboard drawing, right? We've got the cards here. We've got the little stepper at the top. Looks like I can actually click on these cards. Let's see if the search function works. Yep, so the search function works. Let's go ahead and select one of these, hit next. And the second step, if you remember, was the file upload. So I'm going to pick a CSV file here. And this is just a regular CSV with all the rules. It's kind of hard to read. So what we want the page to do is actually extract the rules and represent them as cards. Right? And so this is just a one-line description that I gave it in natural language. And we can actually have full access to all of the code. Right? So if I hit the code view here, we can actually take a look at what it's doing. So you can see here, this is a code for the account gallery, that first step. If we scroll down, we can actually look to see what it's doing on the second step here. Here's the file upload. You can see it's doing some error handling here. So what happens if there's not a valid CSV file, or if it cannot read the file, or if there are no valid rules in the file. And then we'll scroll down some more, and there's a little CSV parsing utility. There's step 3, this is the rules card gallery. So we're still in an early access preview. So right now, the generated code is read-only. But by this summer, you'll be able to edit all of this code in line. You'll be able to hook it up to Git. You'll be able to open it up in your favorite IDE. Now, one of the great things about this is I can make this iterative, right? So I can add some additional instructions. I wanted to do a few other things for me. And so we'll zoom in, and I'll show you the instructions that I gave it. So I said, show the page in dark mode, right? This is sort of a light mode right now, and with Heineken colors. So we'll see if the LLM knows what Heineken colors are. And then just for fun, we're going to ask it for a little 8-bit arcade game where I can shoot beer bottles. And so I'm not quite sure how it's going to interpret that, but we'll give it a shot. And then on step 3, I want some drag and drop action. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send. And again, the agent is streaming its thoughts. It's playing back to me the requirements that I gave it. It's explaining what it's doing, just like a software engineer is thinking and showing his or her work. And so right now, the code is streaming. So while it's doing that, I'm going to dive in to take a look, a closer look at the agent thought. So here you can see it's playing back and saying, I'm asking for specific updates for step 3. I want to split the rules gallery into 2 different columns. On step 2, below the file upload UI, we should add an 8-bit arcade game. And then for step 3, we want to maintain these 2 arrays of rules, one for active, one for pending. And then for the game itself, it says I can't generate images, but I'll use SVGs for the bottles and truck. I wonder what that's going to look like. And so there we go. It's compiling the code. It's finishing up. We'll give it a second or 2 and see how it does. So remember, we're looking for dark mode, and there we go, all right. Dark mode. And you can clap?
Yeah.
It got the Heineken colors, right? It kind of knows what the Heineken colors are, the green here. If we dive into the code here, you can actually see it's defined the hex code for Heineken Green Light, Heineken Green Dark. We can actually search for references to that variable, so you can see it's referenced throughout the code here. And so we got the first step right. Let's go to the second step. And if you remember, we asked for the little arcade game on the second step. So we'll see what we get here. And there we go. That's our arcade game. Looks like I can hit the space bar to shoot the beer bottle. And you can see even the score is incrementing. I have a score of 4. I'm pretty proud of myself. 5. And I can move the bottle. Oh, there's a bug here. So look, even human coders aren't going to get it perfect on the first go. Right? You're going to build a V1, you're going to test it, you're going to refine it, and we're really just providing a new canvas for you to do that iteration and collaboration and rapidly compressing those cycles. I think before my boss gets mad, I'm going to stop playing the game and select our CSV file. So I'm going to pick our CSV file again. And there we go. So we asked it for 2 columns and some drag and drop. So let's actually see if the drag and drop works. I'm going to pull this over here. Yes, the card actually lands in the pending state. So I'm able to drag and drop all of these cards. I asked it for edit and delete buttons. Here indeed is an edit button. I can change to 2,000 bottles, hit save, and that reflected here as well. So, for those of you who have built low-code apps before, you'll recognize what a huge leap forward this is. I mean, if you tried building drag and drop in a Canvas app, or file upload, or built a little arcade game, albeit a little buggy, and I did all of this in just a few minutes. And so, it's always easy for me to revert back to an earlier version. If my boss doesn't want me playing Bottle Blaster all day, I can just restore back to the version that I had earlier. And so all of this is super iterative, and it's easy to work with. So if you recall, we created an agent. We created the app. Now we want to connect the agent and the app, because Anthony showed you how you can supervise those agents in the app. So let me show you how you can do that. So I just go to the Agents tab here, and I can select some of those agents that were created from the Plan Designer. So I'm just going to add this to the app. We'll add this one as well, and this one too. And so these are all of the agents that I want to supervise in my app. And I can also add some suggested actions. So if you recall, Anthony showed you how these agents can escalate certain tasks to you that need your attention. So I'm going to pick here the order table, and we're going to say approve order when amount is less than, say, 5K. And we want to get additional info when amount is greater than 10K. And so once I've configured and hooked up these agents to the app, let me just show you what that looks like. And so here I can actually see in my agent feed the agents that I want to oversee in that app. So the sales order manager, the supply planner, the transport planner. I can see all of the activity of those agents in the feed. And then if you recall, I added that suggested action. I configured that here. And here's the sales order suggestion to get additional info for a specific order because it was triggered. So we basically started with the plan. We created various artifacts. We created an agent. We created an app. We created a generative page. And then we hooked up the agents to the app. So with that, I'll hand it back to Ryan here.
Woo! That was a lot. That was pretty cool. And look, Evan showed a ton in that demo, but we're going to keep moving because we have probably 15 more minutes of demos and 17 minutes to do them in. But that generative page capability is just night and day different from what we've thought about as low code of the past. Also very different from what we've thought about as traditional front-end software development as well. But make no mistake, this is not just another vibe coding tool. This is happening in the context of Power Platform and Dataverse and all of the enterprise-grade connectivity and security and scalability that a vibe coder could only dream about. And it's not only building cool UX and Bottle Blaster games, it's doing it in a context of humans and agents collaborating and pulling through all of these amazing innovations in Copilot Studio. And you heard about some of those this morning in the main keynote, but the ability to orchestrate multiple agents in a team and walk over custom models in Azure AI Foundry, including fine-tuned and post-trained models, use MCP to talk to other open protocols, and even use computers on their own. What agents can do here are just incredibly powerful. Now, they're incredibly powerful, but they're never perfect, and certainly not on day one. And so another really important part of this story is not just how do I generate a plan and generate my first apps and agents, but once they're up and running, how do I make them better? And what does my inner loop look like to monitor and improve? And Evan, let's get a short little view of that, and then we'll zoom out even further.
OK, so just like Ryan mentioned, it's really important to iterate on these agents to get the most out of AI. And so we're going to show you how to do that with the data entry agent. You saw that earlier with Anthony's demo. So I'm going to dive right into teaching mode. So I want to teach the data entry agent based on an example. So I'm going to pick, for example, one of these customer intake forms. So I'm going to pick this one here. So you can see there are a bunch of fields in the document. And we're going to let the data entry agent do its best job to fill that form out. It knows nothing about Heineken's business processes or terminology. And while it's doing that, I'm going to bring up the PDF so we can look at it side by side. There we go. And so you can see that the data entry agent has filled out this form as best it could. But there are some missing fields. There's a key buyer name field, a key buyer email and phone. And it turns out we actually want to pull that information from this part of the document. Now, this isn't something that anyone would know or the data entry agent would know. It's specific to Heineken's processes. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach this agent how it should have filled this form out. So we're going to manually copy this information. We're going to fill in the phone number. See if I can grab the email address. Now, the other thing I want to teach it also is for the customer ID, I actually don't want the first 5 characters. I'm going to delete the first 5 characters. And then I'm going to accept the rest of the suggestions because those are great. I'm going to hit Save Example. And what this is doing now is it's going to append that few-shot example to the LLM prompt. And so we'll see how it does with the next one. So I'm going to now pick a different document and see how it does. So here's another customer intake document. It's got a bunch of fields. We'll switch over to see what the document is on the right side of the screen. We'll give it a second. Now, if you recall, we want the customer ID to just be the numeric portion. And indeed, it pulled the numeric portion of the field. It also pulled the key buyer name and the email from the relevant part of the document. So this is just a great way for you to tailor and tune your agents to work with your business processes. Now let's look at another example here. This one is for summary. So Anthony showed you the summary agent earlier. And this is a really handy way to just at a glance see what all these fields are about. But you know, it's not great, this out-of-the-box summary, and I actually want to tune and customize it. So I can just go to this row summary screen here, and I have full access to the prompt. And so you can see here, it's asking it to summarize the customer table using specifically these columns. Here, I'm going to just ask it to add a few more columns. So let's add the additional notes one. And I'm going to give it a couple more instructions here as well. So I'm going to ask it to bold the field labels. I want it to skip fields that are empty or marked as none. If I wanted to, I can always change the model here. I'm just going to leave it the same. If I wanted to, I could also test it. I'm just going to save this change. And as soon as it saves, we're going to go back to that form and refresh the summary to see if it reflects the latest changes. And so we're expecting it here to have the bold formatting. We're expecting to show some additional information because of the fields that I asked it for. And so we'll just give it a second here to refresh. And so there we go. You can see the styling is updated. It has some information about the additional notes. And so this is just a very simple example of how you can tune these agents for your workflows. Back to Ryan.
Awesome. And look, yeah, you can clap for that too. Okay. This is the new coding, folks. This is the new inner loop. You know, it's not just moving pixels around or changing deterministic things. It's how do I teach and train AI to be better all of the time. And that is really foundational and why we need an agent platform, is because I don't want to have to recreate that all from scratch every single time. I want to build at this higher level. But now I want to zoom out a little bit because you know, all of this is amazing for one scenario of one thing at one customer, sales orders at Heineken that we've been demoing. But the real goal here is not to just build one thing at a time, right? The goal is to repeat this hundreds or thousands of times across every organization. And that's really where the magic of the platform comes into play. Not only can we do all of this faster, but we can do all of it with great visibility and control and oversight. Why don't you give us a really quick peek at this, Evan, because I want to save time for one last bonus demo before we run out of time here.
Okay. Great. So we're going to all put our admin hats on, and I have just the prop for that. You can call me Dr. No. So if you need access to the system, the answer is no. If you want to try this cool AI thing, the answer is no. Some of you might recognize this admin. Maybe you are that admin. Look, admins get a bad rap. They really just need the visibility and control. to make sure all of their assets are safe. And so this is why we built the Copilot Hub. It's a one-stop shop for IT to oversee all of their agents in their organization. So I can see here, for example, how many people are using the data entry agent, how many are using the data exploration agent, how many forms are getting filled out, how many summaries are getting engaged with. I can look at the trend to see if that's going up or down since I made the customizations. We've also received feedback that some of the settings for these AI features aren't the easiest to find, so we've consolidated them now into one place. So there's one place for you to configure the data entry agent, the data exploration agent, and the summary agent. And of course, I can also oversee all of my Copilot Studio agents. So I can see there are 182 active agents here. 69% of them are successful. I have a success rate of 69%. I get recommendations for how I can make them more secure, get better reporting. I can see the build messages here as well. Now, I don't have the admin screen up on my monitor all day long, but I can configure alerts so that if something triggers, for example, this app time to interact rule, I can dive in to take a look at what's happening here. And so I can configure all of these rules based on reliability or based on performance. I can see here, for example, that a few of these apps are slow, so I can work with the makers to improve the performance. Now, monitoring is great, but I also need a scalable way to oversee and govern these assets. And so Heineken has 10,000 apps built by over 2,500 makers in thousands of environments. But thanks to environment groups and rules, they're able to do this at scale. And so here you can see the environment groups that Heineken has set up. And they've configured environment routing here where they're able to set up all of their dev environments in this environment group. Now, I love how Heineken has named their environment groups after their beer brands. So there's Heineken 00 for personal productivity. There's Heineken Silver for team productivity. And then there's Heineken Original for hardcore enterprise workloads. And of course, you can set up different rules for each of these environment groups. So I can drill into one of these. I can modify the rules here. So for example, I can change the sharing limits for this given environment group, publish it, and all of these rules are published to the environments. So we hope that these capabilities will move the Dr. No's to become Dr. Yeses.
Thank you, Evan. Everybody give a big round of applause for Evan. This is the huge differentiator, right? This is why so many customers are going to trust Microsoft and specifically Power Platform for AI. It's because of this kind of oversight. But we got one last bonus demo for you here, because there's a really critical question. How many of you live in an organization where the only software development happens in Power Platform and nowhere else? Yeah, none of us, right? There's a lot of engineers using a lot of tools. There's a lot of amazing tools coming out. What if all those great management features were not just restricted to apps and agents you built in Power Platform? What if you could take advantage of all of the data connectivity, all of the ALM management, all of the security, all of the oversight for any code that was generated anywhere? Now you can. And to show it to you, we need another Ryan. Ryan Jones, take us away.
Awesome, thank you. I am other Ryan. You can also call me Mr. Yes and if you like. But what I want to show you is how the Power Platform is for everyone. And so I almost feel strange doing this. It's not showing up. There we go. I just had to press it twice. VS Code there on the left-hand side of my screen. And the thing is, imagine for a moment I'm a dev in Heineken IT, and to get these agents in the hand of everyone, we've got to have phones and PCs. So I have started to build an asset tracker. It's built in React and TypeScript. And so the first thing that I am going to do is I am going to wire up this app to the Power Platform. And so I'm initializing that right now. And so what we're doing was we're reaching out to the Power App Service and saying, hey, this other Ryan guy, he wants to create an app for testing assets. And so you'll see here, I now have this new power.config.json file that wires up my local machine to my API management instances in the cloud. And I now have an unpublished app showing up right here. Now, the thing is, remember, Power Platform has over 1,500 different connectors so that you can connect to the data within your organization where it lives. And so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to add that data connectivity to this app. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to a list of employees through the Microsoft 365 graph. I'm then going to link to a table that lives in a SQL server that has information about all of the assets in my organization. And then I'm going to connect to another table that tracks the association between devices and my employees. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to go through and I am going to publish this application. And so you'll see that this app is now accessible through this link here, but it is actually running from my local machine. Now, how many of you are familiar with data loss prevention policies in the Power Platform that control how data flows? That is automatically being enforced on this ProDev app that I have built. And so here we are gathering consent, not only for the Entra-based authentication to the Office 365 API, but also to the SQL Server. And so I'm going to allow that consent and refresh that application. And so we'll see that I now have all of that information. Now, let's assume for a moment that I need to change this app, because at the end of the day, you bring the vibes, we bring the platform. And so I'm going to launch GitHub Copilot right here. I'm going to make sure that I'm switched into agent mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few tweaks to my app real fast. I'm going to go through and I'm going to say, you know what, asset tracker, that sounds kind of abstract. Let's change that to hardware management. And as you can see right now, that I messed up. You can see right now that, I tell you what, we'll try one more time. We're going to try to change that asset tracker to hardware management, and we can see as we edit that file, there we go, it's now changed. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you is how all of us use a cadre, a crew of agents to build these apps. And so I'm going to show you now some changes in a different IDE. This is Cursor. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask Cursor to go through and I'm going to tell it to change asset information to hardware info. And that here is down at the bottom of my screen. And so we can see Cursor's churning away, making that change, and I instantly see that that is live. I'm now happy with the changes that I've made to my application, and so I'm going to go to my command line, and I'm going to publish this application. And so we're now taking this application and publishing it in production to our fully managed platform. This means the application is deployed across availability zones, it is deployed across multiple regions, and to optimize performance, we have also gone through and we're distributing that content through our CDN. Now, imagine for a moment that I'm really excited about this new application. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to share this application with all of my closest friends. And so I'm going to add a few people. Let's see, another Ryan, because we keep adding Ryans until we take over the world. And let's see, David worked really hard on this demo as well. So I'm going to add him. But what you'll notice is that this app has a maximum sharing limit. One of the things that we see is that the risk of applications that we build is directly proportional to how broadly they've been shared. And because this is a line of business application built on Power Apps, it's automatically integrated with Entra. In addition to that, the sharing limits that my organization has applied to apps also apply to this out of box. And so we've been able to show you how really you can bring any agent to help you build your applications so that you can build awesome apps that run on the Power Platform. Thank you. Back to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. Woo! Whose brain is full of pretty awesome software and demos? I know mine is. But we're very excited about this concept of being able to bring your own code and deploy it to Power Platform, because it really means I don't have to choose anymore between Power Platform and any other IDE. I can get all of these benefits no matter where I write code. And so look, that is the whole story, folks. It is a whole new way to build agents and interactions with them. and a completely different approach to what low code means. We think this is really the dawn of the agent platform age. The cool thing about it is almost everything you saw today, you can just go home and use right now. Plans are generally available. A lot of the in-app agent capabilities are in public preview. There are a couple of things you have to ask real nicely to use. They're in an early access preview. You can do that by hitting this QR code. We're really keen to hear your feedback and have you get hands-on with them. But I think the last thing I'll leave you with here to play us out is all of this is sort of a story we've told through the lens of a real customer of Heineken. And all of this is developed very closely in partnership with our customers and our community. None of this is coming out of thin air. And the things that people are doing with Power Platform and pushing the platform to become are truly amazing. And so I'll leave you with the Heineken story, and we hope to see you out there in the product soon. Take care. Oops.
Here at Heineken, we've been brewing beer for over 150 years. Currently, we operate in nearly 200 countries worldwide, and we manage around 500 brands. To stay ahead, we are transforming into the best connected brewer by using data and AI across every part of our organization. One of the exciting opportunities we are exploring today is the validation of sales orders. We as Heineken process tens of thousands of orders every day, which must comply with the logistic trade terms. By embedding logistic trade terms check into the order validation process, we can save hours and hours of work and boost transport efficiency.
The Power Platform is growing year by year within Heineken. At this moment, we have more than 2,500 makers across the globe actively developing on our platform, which result in more than 10,000 applications being used on a daily basis within our organization. With the managed platform, we are able to govern thousands of environments with just 5 team members within the global team and return more than 4,000 hours back to our organization. This way, we can give the makers around our organization the flexibility and freedom to play around with all the cool new AI features and Copilot capabilities. PowerBot is our first internal ChatGPT, launched actually 2 years ago. The cool thing about PowerBot is that it builds on Copilot Studios. It started as just an internal ChatGPT, but every day we're seeing how to bring more value towards the organization. Like, for example, now pro coders within our organization get assistance when it comes to coding. One of the cool Power Apps that we have is actually checking campaigns with